Hey, what's up guys? Today we're going to start on some gates similar to what we've built in the past. It's going to be a 5-rail, 3.5-inch pipe, 5-rail with a diagonal. I'm also going to be sharing with you what this apparatus is, where you can find one, and why pipeline welders or pipe fitters in any industry use them. In the past we've done 2 3/8 horizontals with 2 7/8 diagonal. On this one, we're going to be doing 3.5-inch horizontals with 4.5-inch uprights on each end and then a 4.5-inch diagonal. But first, we've got to get this pipe off these stands. To do that, I need to cut these bands. Before I do that, I'm going to tack me some stops here on the other side and down there also. What are y'all doing back here? Besides eating hay and being lazy. Some of you may or may not be asking, Austin, why do you have this pipe setting up in stands instead of on the ground? Reason being is because we built this guy for the little old Ford tractor that's down here. Hydraulics versus chain hoist. So we're moving on up when it comes to lifting apparatuses and, you know, working less with our back and muscles and more with equipment. Really, I would like to have like a set of forks, but anyway, so the pipe was on a trailer. So picture trailer right here, pipe was on it. So this is as low as this thing goes. So obviously I could put a chain hoist on there or come along, or I could have just used my gin pole and I could have set it on the ground. But I wanted to try this thing out. But as you can see, since this is the low as this can go, I had to set it on jack stands or some type of something that was off the ground. So I just wanted to show you all this, and that's what we're going to use to move our pipe around today. I've got to build 2 12-foot gates, and to start with, I'm going to cut 3 pieces of 4.5-inch straight cuts, probably with the beveling machine, only because the blade that I have on my chop saw is a 12-inch instead of a 14-inch, and I'm not sure that it'll get all the way through the 4-inch. It might, but I like using the beveling machine anyway, so, and I won't have to crowd my shop because I've actually got a welding bed that I'm working on in there. The most exciting part about these gates is instead of having to draw on the concrete, we've got prints. So now all we've got to do is look at our print, get a cut length, cut our 3 pieces, 4.5, 4.5, and the diagonal, and then start fabbing it up. And I'm excited to let you know that you can find your very own prints of these gates, of this entrance that we've been building, the 12-inch entrance, the 8-inch, a couple of different styles that we've added to the arosswelding store, arosswelding.com. Click on the shop tab and then look under the digital print tab. Look at this, brand new Stinger 250 amp Tweco. Put some friction tape around the handle. Ooh, feels good. You know, I talked a few weeks ago about how I like a T300 for pipeline welding. That's true, but the bad thing about a T300 is sometimes it gets loose in the 332 to hold a 332 rod, because whenever I'm pipelining on like big inch, I'm running a lot of like 532 and 3/16 rods. I don't run a lot of 332, versus when I'm doing this kind of stuff, I run 332 rod quite a bit. So I like a good old reliable Tweco Stinger. So what I've got here is just some scrap pieces that was around the chop saw. I'm going to use some 332 70/18, and I'm just going to tack it here and tack it back there. Probably put a little more than just a tack, but that way whenever I cut these bands, pipe doesn't roll off these stands. That's one of the things I love about being a welder, especially a mobile welder, is the flexibility, or the, I guess flexibility would be the word. Like being able to just throw something together like these stands and some short pieces of pipe, and then bring my mobile welding rig wherever I need it. I can, temporary situations, we'll say that. It's just so handy and quick, you know, and then you can just start your work, you know, and just diverse and flexible. I just like it. And being a welder, you can throw quick stuff like this together. Improvising maybe is another word. You just doing whatever it takes to get the job done, you know? Versus feeling like you can't do something because you don't have a big enough shop, or you don't have enough stands, you know, to put pipe on, or whatever the case is, you know. Now, looky there. Now we can cut these bands. Probably just gonna get out my torch and cut all them bands, and then pick me up a piece of this 4.5 inch, set it out here, and then look at the measurements on my prints and go to cutting. Heads up. This here is called a beveling machine. That's what I'm going to be using today to cut this pipe. It's called a beveling machine because it can bevel pipe. This little apparatus here, you can angle it and you can bevel your pipe for like an actual pipe weld, but you can also put it in here straight like so and do straight cuts. So that's how I will be using it. All right, so we're going to be cutting an 84-inch piece and a 14-foot piece out of this 121-foot piece. 7 foot, also known as 84 inches. And then this piece will already be 14 foot, and then we'll just have to cut a 60-inch piece out of one of these other joints for this first gate. For me personally, I like using a beveling machine versus a chop saw, depending on the project, of course. Mostly just because it brings back pipeline memories, you know. Not only pipeline memories, but it also is a good example of being able to build something without a chop saw and really without a beveling machine. We could always put a pipe wrap on this or one of them templates, make a straight mark, and just hand cut it. Just something that I like to notice or point out and share in my videos, because there's a lot of you, I believe, viewers that watch the YouTube channel that are just now starting, from what we can tell. So I always like to mention different ways to build stuff with bare minimum stuff, because it just helps you get started and get experience before you have to have all the, you know, fancy tools or tools that make it quicker or easier and whatnot. Things can just be done with less. Another thing I just thought of is how valuable it is to practice with a beveling machine when doing these types of projects, because it prepares you for pipeline welding, if that's something that you think you might want to do in the future. Pipeline welding or just pipe welding in general. Oh no, oh no. We got a defaulty beveling machine. There we go. And now for our 60-inch piece. All I did here was slide this pipe out, slide these back, slide this one piece back. That way my beveling machine would have room, and that way I wouldn't have to lift a whole joint over there just to cut this one piece off. Again, I love the mobile cutting apparatus versus a chop saw is mobile, but obviously a chop saw is mobile, although compared to a 2 to 4 inch pipe beveling machine, it's a little bit heavier. and it's not as easy to set up in the situation that we're currently in this video. And last but not least, a chop saw will not bevel the end of a piece of pipe. As you can see here, I've got my torch set up on an angle, allowing us to put a bevel on the end of this piece of pipe. For those of you who may not know, a bevel just means an angle on the piece of pipe. I realize this may be basic for a lot of you who show up every week, but I hope it helps somebody that knows nothing about the pipe welding industry. In short, a bevel, or an angle on each piece of pipe that we weld together, creates a V situation, allowing us to get full penetration throughout the whole wall thickness of the piece of pipe throughout the whole weld. For the record, there are other types of machines, if you will, that bevel the ends of pieces of pipe, but a beveling machine like we have here is something that is very common in the pipeline industry, which is what I have the most experience in. They make all different sizes. This one here is a Mathey Dearman brand. I got this one off of eBay several years ago. Facebook Marketplace is a good place to find them, possibly Craigslist. Your local pawn shop may have them. The reason I'm mentioning used options is because brand new, they are pretty expensive, but if you did want to go the more expensive route, I recommend going to your local welding supply first and foremost. If you can't find one there, just Google Mathey Dearman pipe beveling machine, and I bet that there's some welding supplies online that sell beveling machines. If you're interested in a little bit more information on the beveling machine and you want to see me make a cut with one of these, we'll put a link in the description to a video that I made a couple of years ago talking more in detail about this pipe beveling machine. Go the other way this time, because I believe this beveling machine cuts better going the other way, the opposite way in which it's going right now. Let's see. No, I need to go the other way, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, see, it didn't hang up this time. Let's take a close-up of this beveling machine so you'll know what I'm talking about whenever I say go in different directions. So this beveling machine, if you come down here, it's just wide enough between that piece and this piece to slip over the biggest size of pipe that the beveling machine is made for. So a used beveling machine can get out of time, is what they call it. In other words, these gears get loose and whatnot, and whenever you're bebopping along, this gear lets go of this one and it's only being cranked by that one gear versus both of them. But then whenever that gear is about to run out of this piece here, this other gear picks up the other side of the beveling machine. And sometimes, like what happened on that last cut, I was coming around this way and it bound up. See, this beveling machine it's a little better now that I've used it, but sometimes if they're out of time bad enough, you'll have to adjust these gears because it'll just grab right there. It gets hung up like it's kind of doing right now, see? So if you've got a used beveling machine, you kind of learn which way your beveling machine works best. So anyway, just a fun little fact, and kind of get to know these beveling machines here in case you ever get one for yourself. Brand new one shouldn't have any issues, but you know, if you find one used on eBay or Craigslist or something, Facebook Marketplace, you may have some issues like that to work out. All right, now that I got all these 3 pieces cut, got them over here in my jack stands, and the first thing I'm doing is leveling the situation. So I always start with one side. I've pretty well got it all level. I get in a groove and I forget to turn on the camera, but I'll fill you in on what I did here. So I'd start with one side, get it level, and then this piece actually goes right here at a diagonal, but since my 4-foot level is only 4 foot, it won't reach the 12-foot span of the gate. I'm using this as a jumper or whatever. So I'm laying it up here temporarily to get this level. So got that level, bring it over here. I'm gonna leave these 2 jack stands where they're at because I know this is level. And this says it needs to go down over here. And then I'll go with this stand and bring it down just a touch. And then this piece here. Oh, I done skipped a step. The very first thing I did was got my two uprights. This is the short side of my gate, this is the long side. I pulled the tape from outside to outside, and the prints give us the inside measurement, and I just took that inside measurement, 130 3/4 I believe was the inside, and I just added 4 1/2 2 times, which is 9, to get 139 3/4. So I got it roughly the distance in between. It's already moved. I'm actually about 1 inch over, but that was the first thing I did, was got my two main pieces roughly the length I needed in between. That way they would be close. In the perfect world, if you're working on a perfectly level piece of concrete, you would be able to do that step that I just said, and then level everything, and then check your measurements again and kick your jack stands around to get it precisely what you need it to be. And in theory, if your concrete's all level, you shouldn't need to re-level it. But in this case, and in many cases that I've been in over the years working on gravel, dirt, whatever, I'll go back and forth. I'll check my measurement, level, check my measurement, level. That way I'm constantly making sure everything is in the same plane and the right measurements that they need to be. So, got everything level. We're over here, we're checking this. This needs to come down a touch. I'll roll this piece over here to check this side. And it's pretty hootin' tootin' close. Maybe come down just a skosh here. Let me know in the comments, those of you that are experienced, do you, when you're working off of jack stands, from your experience, do you always get around to your last side like I am here and it's always off, which in my head makes no sense? Let me know if that's happened to you, because if it has, it would make me feel a little better, because in theory I shouldn't need to move this because this should already be level, right? So what I do for that, for those of you that may be asking, is I just find the happy medium. I get it close. I come down with it a touch, and then I'll come back over here and check this one. I'll make a merry-go-round one more time is what I'll do, and yeah, see, it's pretty close. It's all within the lines. That's all I know how to do. So now everything is level currently, and now the next thing I would do with any just basic square structure without the diagonal piece, I need to square these two now, because even though they're all level and they're close, this, I can tell right now, this piece needs to come up a little bit. But the way I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna take my center punch and put a center punch 60 inches up here to match that. That way I have an even playing field right here, 60 inches versus 84 inches over here, because that wouldn't tell me anything. Equal measurements, if you will. So I'm gonna pull 60 inches, put a punch mark, actually a little less than 60. I'm gonna make it the same. Whatever I pull from over there, make a punch mark, which will be less than 60 because I can't put a punch mark right on the end of that piece. So call it 58 inches. Pull bottom here to 58 inches, and then I'll probably put a punch mark 1 inch up, and then I'll use them punch marks to cross measure. Once it's square, check for level again, bump my jacks around to make sure my outside dimension is what it needs to be, and then I'll be setting good for the next step. So now we're gonna get a center finder and a punch, or a hammer, I mean. 45 and a quarter. All right, get your steps in squaring fabrication up. Now nobody touch these two things. Karen, Kevin, Kayla, Austin, nobody touch them, because I'm gonna have to leave this overnight and we'll pick this up in the next video. Hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out our website, arosswelding.com, under the shop tab and under digital prints to find your very own prints for these entrances that you've seen us build here on the channel, or these gates. Also, if you have any questions about what we talked about in this video, you can text me at 405-643-7176. Hope you all have an awesome weekend, and remember, learn something every day.